Okay, let's go ahead and call Charlie.
Is this the guy that's a better runner than you?
Yeah.
Whoa.
There we go.
Charles Hatch.
At the tone, please
Gosh,
record your
dang
message.
it.
You have finished recording. You may hang up or press 1 for more options.
I'm interested. Eric, have you ever listened to the podcast?
No.
Oh, wait.
Ross.
Chris, who's Eric?
I don't
I'm
think
sorry.
no
There's
one.
somebody. Sorry, Chris. Who are we calling? Charlie.
My friend
Yeah,
Charlie.
okay. Chris and
And
Charlie.
we're going to give him just...
All right. Chris, I won't do that again.
Maybe Chris could just introduce us, but the cool part is he stays on.
Okay. Here we go. New episode. Friend Chris, indoor climbing partner, lover of pizza slices, St. Louisan. He's guest hosting us today, the He Got Game podcast. So, Chris, you're going to introduce our names, what you know about the Speech Guys, which is almost nothing. That's okay. And what the episode is. And remember, this is edited, so that's okay. I'm passing it off to you.
All right. Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I'll start with Ross. Looks like Matt, Mike, obviously, and Landon. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, JL.
JL. All right, we'll go with JL
for this podcast.
Yeah, we're gonna be.
So,
go ahead.
Chris and I have been climbing together for about 3 years, although more seriously, just the past year here in St. Louis. We'll keep it short and sweet. Episode is Becoming Jesus is sort of what we're going to title this speech. That's the speech that Denzel Washington's character Jake Shuttlesworth gave to his son, Jesus Shuttlesworth, in the 1998 Spike Lee film He Got Game. With that, and it's Speeches by Prisoners, a new speech series. So with that, let's go ahead and cue the music.
When you see the road,
Michael Schaefer, Ross Johnson, Matt Schultz, and Landon Fry are all here. It's free.
perspective. I've been back in
I'm just going to say it. I've been thinking it for 10 minutes. I don't want a podcast here.
Oh, yeah.
ashes. Now I've seen the road.
Pregnancy is a beautiful thing. Pregnancy is a gift.
Oh, there are stories to tell.
What kind of paint sticks to asteroids? Like, if you don't prime your walls.
Afraid some days, but the road will lead us to a better place.
We are called to emerge from that default setting of self-involvement. Okay, we're back. That was put on Chris pretty quickly, the introduction there, so we won't fault him too much for a lack of theatrics and drama and comedy.
But he's staying on. He's here
But
with us.
the plus side, he's staying on. He's staying on all 80 minutes or so. Let's go ahead and listen to those 2 clips that we're going to listen to, just to set up the context for these 2 speeches from the film. For those who have not seen the movie, Denzel Washington's character Jake is in prison for sort of a questionable situation, but we'll leave that to the movie podcast, for involuntary manslaughter, I believe, for accidentally killing his wife, Jesus Shuttlesworth's mother, in a fight, a cuffle that they have. So he's in prison. Meanwhile, his son, Jesus Shuttlesworth, is a great basketball player, phenom, and is about to graduate high school. And he is trying to figure out what college to go to. It so happens that the governor of this particular state, I think it's New York, decides that he will let Denzel Washington's character out of prison early if he can convince Jesus to go to the college of the that the governor wants. So Denzel Washington has 1 week, which is way more time than Denzel Washington needs to get anything done. Chris left.
So this is
See.
basically big state is the University of Illinois. This movie's in 1998, and the governor so the governor's Jim Edgar trying to get Chicago's best draft pick to go to U of I, right?
Are you saying U of I just because that's relevant to us, or because of something you know?
No, they filmed it in Chicago, and his high school jersey was like Lincoln. It was like there were sports clips in the newspaper, like Land of Lincoln Basketball of the Year, which is Illinois. So
Right, I'm familiar.
yeah,
Huh. Okay, we'll take your word for it. University of Illinois metaphor.
Go Rails Splitters.
Okay. So Denzel Washington out of prison, and the first speech that we're going to listen to is sort of his first meaningful interaction with his son out on this particular pier. With that, let's go ahead and listen to that clip.
Come on, let's walk. I knew he was gonna come, though. I appreciate it, though, son. Yeah, I appreciate it for coming to meet me and everything like that. I got this for Mary here, you know. I thought she might like these here. And my all-time favorite ball player was Earl Monroe. Oh, the Pearl. Yeah, he was nice. See, everybody remember him from the Knicks, you know, when he helped win that second championship and everything like that. But I'm talking about when he was with the Bullets down Winston-Salem Stadium before that, gave him 42 points a game the whole season, 41.6. The whole season. For the Knicks, they put the shackles on him, man. You know, on his whole game, they locked him up like in a straitjacket or something. When he was in the streets of Philly, playgrounds, he was like, you know what they call him?
What?
Jesus. That's what they call him, Jesus, because he was the truth. Then the white media got a hold of it, then they got to call him Black Jesus. You know, he can't just be Jesus, he got to be Black Jesus, you know, but still, he was the truth. So that's the real reason why you got your name.
You named me Jesus after Earl Monroe, not Jesus in the Bible?
Not Jesus of the Bible, Jesus of North Philadelphia. Jesus of the playgrounds. That's the truth, son. The way he dished, the way he, you know, he spin, you know how you do. Coming off, all that, towel. I want you to go to big state, son. That's the real reason why I'm out here. That's the reason they let me out. You find it in your heart to go to big state, and they may let me out on an early parole.
So that's what this is all about, huh?
That's a part of it. That's
Jack, you just like everybody else.
Like everybody else. I ain't like everybody else. Everybody else ain't your father. Everybody else ain't bring you in this world. Everybody else don't care about you, son. Like that girl you running with, you know her? Layla?
Lala.
Lala, you know her?
Yeah, I know her.
Yeah, she know you like a book, too. Many a great man, son, their downfall was because of a woman.
Talking about Samson and Delilah.
Yeah, that's right, him too. Him too. You see, I don't cut my hair, right? So you do know your Bible, huh? Look, son, just be careful. That's all I'm saying to you, all right? All right? You know, if you're gonna go to big state, I mean, is that like a finalist or the Final Four for you?
They're in my top 10.
In your top 10? All right, that's good. 1 out of 10, I could live with the odds.
Okay, second speech excerpt that we're going to do is from the later part of the film. We're obviously going to talk about the first one first, but just to make sure that we get everything out here to work with. I'm calling this the Father Wound speech. There is no official title to this speech that I could find from the film. The one-on-one speech is another name for it. But this takes place towards the end. Denzel Washington's week is almost up. It's still not clear that Ray Allen's character is going to pick the college that he needs to, quote unquote, in order to get his father out of prison. So the deal is that Denzel Washington challenges his son to a one-on-one game to 11. And if he wins, he goes to big state. But if he does not win, then Ray Allen gets to choose whatever his heart feels is right. So with that.
Point game. Just play the game.
Just play the game. I learned that from you. You better D up, Jake.
Point game.
This your last shot.
Come on, where you at?
Game time. What you looking around for? That's game, 11-5. Jake. Somebody call a stretcher. Stick a fork in him, he's done. Take your old ass back to Attica.
Feel like a man now? Huh? Maybe you can stop hating me so I can bring your mother back? Maybe we can start being father and son again now. Huh? Can
You
we
ain't
do
my
that?
father.
Let me tell you something. You look out for yourself. You look out for your sister. You ain't got to worry about me no more. But you get that hatred out your heart, boy. Or you're gonna end up just another like your father. Sure, boy.
Well, Jack, I think it's time for all of us to go back home.
Yeah?
No, Jack. Turn around.
Okay, so those are our two speeches, Identity and Father Wounds. First reactions to either of those speeches?
First reactions, it was like a great movie, as all movies in the 90s are. I had never seen it, and I mean, I love basketball movies. I didn't know Ray Allen was in a movie.
Yeah, that's crazy, like, thinking about that now.
Yeah.
And he does a pretty solid job.
Yeah. So that was surprising. Again, I was also fascinated with all the Illinois connections. Yeah, the fictional team was the Lincoln Rail Splitters. The Lincoln, Illinois high school is the Rail Splitters. Like,
Not a fictional team, yeah.
But
it takes place in New York, obviously, because they reference
still,
Attica.
like, it's all over the intro. Yeah, I think letting go. I think if you were to sum up generic father and son tensions, the final line there, like letting go of the hatred. Otherwise, the thing that you hate about me is also going to boil up and be a part of you, is truth, likely.
There is a really brief quote that I came up with myself that I want to share that I feel like fits really well here. I haven't heard anyone else say it, but I feel like it makes sense. I think since Adam and Eve, people have been blaming either their father, or men have been blaming either their fathers or their wives. Agree, disagree? What % of our shortcomings would we blame on those two people? Just an interesting thought. I just wanted to make sure that got out there. Okay.
Fascinating.
Maybe that's a Final Bell question, but we have to give an actual. We have to give an exact digit.
If you
the
could give your
10%.
percentages.
But yeah, no, I thought it was just a very raw father figure. Almost like, I feel like the first Rocky movie is just kind of, I don't know, just very raw people, like Paulie, the way Paulie kind of like defends his sister, but also like really puts his sister down. And I don't know. But then Jake is this, very clear kind of flaws, and how he pushed his son, how he interacted with his wife, and these sort of very typical masculine problems. With he was drinking while he was playing his son in basketball, and pushing him way too hard, and but also just So I guess just this very raw father figure, but has this like deep carnal fatherhood about him. That I thought came out like in these speeches, but just throughout the whole movie, you could tell that's like deep. That's a deep part of his identity.
Yeah, I mean, I think to briefly riff on that is like Denzel Washington, sort of similar to Sidney Poitier as an actor, but Denzel Washington too. And in this movie, he's like a very physical actor. Like he uses his body to like accentuate his dialogue. He laughs about something. He shakes his body just really. And then he makes these references to the Bible and Samson and Delilah and how that's why he doesn't cut his hair. Yeah, it's very clear his fatherhood is profoundly important to him, even if he, obviously fell short in particular ways.
That's an interesting. Yeah, I like that. He cares a lot, and he's very into it.
I wish we knew a little bit about what his character's father was like.
All the biggest biographies you read like start at the great-great-grandfather and like look at the ebb and flow of the generations to get out to the main character, and like they always try to like tie traits to 2 or 3 generations back, and we're missing that here.
First reactions, not necessarily on the movie, but just speaking to the speech when they're playing basketball. Yeah, kind of interesting. I don't know if it's a dynamic, and I don't think I'm necessarily trying to look too hard into it. You have this like, on one hand, it's just a superficial level, he's trying to get himself out of prison. So like you could just watch that scene as like he wants to beat his son so that his son will pick big state and he'll get out of prison sooner. But then like at the same time, he's like fathering Jesus Shuttlesworth here. And it's like, I feel like that line at the end, not that it's like a rite of passagey thing, but it was almost like a, like when he said, "It's your ball" or whatever. I don't know. I thought that was like not that was like an initiation type thing, but I feel like it was definitely like a, he could see how much pain his son was in, and kind of a challenge maybe to, let that go so that he doesn't, have all these problems later on.
Well, I mean, I think I think rite of passage is the pretty much right word for that. Yeah, because obviously they had never played one-on-one before, other than when they were young, and obviously, Denzel Washington would beat him. So I think there was something, definitely rite of passage-y sort of about that. Like something to the effect of like, now you finally beat me. Like that's what you wanted.
Pass the torch. I thought the first speech was interesting because it's not really fair to either Jake or Jesus, because he's working on a compressed timeline. He's got a week to do this thing. As you guys said before, he's a father first, and it's almost like he cares a little too much. He pushes his son too hard, but he's got a week to repair the damage of the past and accomplish this thing, and it's not really realistic. It's not fair, but.
So why did I choose this speech, or this collection of speeches from this movie? Well, one, I just happened upon this movie from one of my favorite podcasts called The Rewatchables, where they just talk about movies. But I do remember when this movie came out, because it was 1998. I was balling it up like every other kid in America, since Jordan was obviously at his peak. Have the shaved head, looked exactly like him. An okay basketball player, mind you. I wasn't aggressive enough. That was my biggest weakness, but I could definitely shoot the jumper fairly well. So I remember seeing this and wanting to watch it, but as you guys saw, not appropriate for a 9-year-old boy. So we have the speech series, speeches by prisoners. I saw our ideas for some of the other prisoners. I don't remember what exactly the topic, but I felt like there was a niche here with fatherhood that we could explore as an opportunity here with prisons. Being a person, I do have a father, and there's that. I think there's something that, obviously this film, it takes place in urban area, black family, black friends. But I think that what's really attractive and compelling about the story is that the father-son dynamic, the father-son relationship has such a profound relevance to all different kinds of people and all different demographics, right? And one of the things I made a point of in the notes was like the absent father, right? And I had made a link to an interview Denzel Washington did for a film he did called something a few years ago. And he was commenting on like the system being an issue against African Americans versus the home life. And he had referenced absent fathers in that. But what reminded me of the idea of absent fathers is how, like, you can't necessarily ever quite run away from it. Like, even in this white middle class family, specifically, I put a link to the Ferris Bueller movie, right? And it's one of Ferris Bueller's friends, right? His dad is just obsessed with his job, right? And just cares more about his car than attention to his son. And so the son takes it out on him by, accidentally or not caring when he takes it out on the streets of Chicago and then runs through the window. But the point is, like, this dynamic of the absent father is still there. It just manifests itself in this other, different, interesting way. That was particularly striking, compelling to me. I felt like there was a lot of father to that. And let's see, any other particularly first reactions to these two speeches? Yeah, the idea of Ray Allen acting in a movie, like, as an adult, thinking like, yeah, let's just take some NBA player and put him in a multi-million-dollar movie. Like, man, that's sort of crazy and impressive. He actually was in one other movie with legitimate people a few years later, but like Shaq's acting career, it sort of faded into the distance. So, first speech, identity. So there's kind of two ideas. Matt's had made a note on my note here that I sort of want to play with. So one, Denzel Washington emphasizes where you came from. And you can express that in a whole lot of different ways. In this particular way, he emphasizes how this is why you're actually named Jesus. It's not because Jesus from the Bible, as you might have thought. It's actually because of this particular basketball player, Earl Monroe, who the media called the Black Jesus, right?
Because his skills were truth. I wondered why was this fictional Earl Monroe named Black Jesus? Because he was, as Denzel says, like, truth. Just FYI.
So, okay, one, like, I mean, they showed clips. Earl Monroe was a real player, right?
Yeah, he did not average 41.6.
Oh, really?
According to Basketball Reference.
What did he average?
I closed it, but I'll find it again.
Oh, he was real. Huh. I kind of thought, since most of the things they were doing were fictional, I kind of thought maybe this is a fictional guy. Otherwise, they would have called Big State University the U of I, right?
His best season, he averaged 25.8 points a game.
Oh my gosh, that's a huge difference.
He was only, like, good. He wasn't...
Like Moses, maybe.
So he was like early NBA. Yeah.
Man, that begs a really interesting question then of like, why did Spike Lee pick him out for this particular? Was he actually called Black Jesus?
He was, yeah. Yeah, there has several nicknames listed: the Pearl, Black Jesus, Black Magic, Einstein. Yeah, there's a few different nicknames he had.
Huh.
25 points a game is like on the line for like major.
Now.
According to this, though, he was voted one of the top 75 players in NBA history.
Yeah. And you got to consider him within the context of his peers, which back then, Wilt Chamberlain had a 100-point game.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Real player. Cool. Good to know.
Okay, where he came from, but also bringing in this dynamic of, your opportunity. Like, because of who you are, you have this certain opportunity to not only live into this name, but also become something more than that. Can you guys recall any speeches like this, or even if it wasn't exactly speeches from your dad, or uncle, or grandpa, or godfather, or male figure that was sort of like had this flavor to it, or conversations that had this flavor to it of this is who you are?
Mm-hmm.
Or even if it's just like a comment that they would say with some regularity and sort of try to tether it to possibility, to opportunity.
Speeches like this one, like which part of the speech are we pulling from here? Well,
just the general idea of it, right? That this is who you are. This is your origin.
Oh, okay.
Story,
The naming, the origin
and
story
this
one,
is-
not the get the hatred out of your heart. Okay, gotcha.
Kind of it wasn't delivered in quite as momentous of a speech or in a way like this, but a realization. So my grandpa on my dad's side was his father kind of left him and abandoned the family. So they didn't really know much about him. And he was raised by like his stepdad. But what they found out eventually, they did a little bit of like genealogy stuff, and found out his name, or his like full name. They knew his name was Joseph, but his name was Joseph Matthew, when my name's Matthew Joseph. So that was something I remember my grandma and my and a few of my aunts kind of bringing up. Oh, like your grandfather's original dad was Joseph Matthew, and they never really like said this to me, but I guess I always kind of thought like, oh, well, like this is a man who like clearly failed in his mission to be a good father and husband, and like, all right, I'm kind of like reversing that, or I kind of saw that as like, okay, like Joseph Matthew, like, all right, I'm Matthew Joseph. I'm gonna, kind of change the direction here.
Yeah,
so
I could see that being in a movie.
Yeah. So anyway, no one ever like put that on me. No one ever was like, you're you're Matthew Joseph. You're gonna change the way that your grandfather, your great grandfather treated it. But something I at least kind of internalized a little bit.
Could you imagine? I mean, you've brought him up before, so what, he left the family now probably like 80 years ago, right? Sure, something like that. Can you imagine, like, if he knew, there's going to be your great-grandson talking with his friends about this reality 80 years later? Huh. Well.
Well, as Chris introduced me as JL, the J stands for JAY, which is my father's name. So I go by my middle name, as does my father. His first name is Delbert, who was his father, and so on. But actually, not so on. I thought it went back like generations. It only goes back 4, and the 2 guys before him.
Still...
Yeah. It's not quite as far as I thought, but so I did always knew that. I knew that like I was named after my dad. He was named after his dad, and then just from memory, I could name my great-grandfather, my great-great, and the one who came over on the boat. And it's like I am the 6th generation free farmer in America. I knew the grave sites of everybody who had been in this country since we came over from Germany, which always had I don't know. Yeah, I can't describe the feeling, but at least like knew some of the stories of each one and how they came over. And then specifically on Landon, I always thought it was cool. I think they just picked it because they liked the name. But it is a little bit Irish, I believe, is its origin. And it basically means like wide open green pastures, which I'm a huge golfer and just like
It's a good golf course.
lover of land and open spaces. And it is always kind of weird how that those are my desires, and it's like basically in my name. So
I don't recall any speeches like my dad gave me, which I feel like for most people that's probably true. Like, I mean, movies have to they're operating on a timeline, so they have to kind of, I feel like, exaggerate things to make their point in 2 hours. I always thought it was cool. So my middle name is Garrett, which is my mom's maiden name, and pretty much everybody who ever met him says I look exactly like my mom's dad, Richard or Dick Garrett. And I always was just kind of, I don't know. I just was always like, apparently when I was like a little, he died when I was pretty young, but I was just always very attached to him and wanted to be with him and all that stuff. And then he passed away when I was only 4 or 5 years old. But I was just always like kind of borderline proud of that like, oh yeah, like that's my middle name, and everyone says I look like him. I just always kind of I don't know, not proud of where you came from in a sense of like a place, but just like I'd always would like that link.
Chris, any identity speeches from your dad?
Yeah, kind of like Ross said, not a big one thing, one punch but just omnipresent, this is who we are, this is what we do. You can do whatever you want as long as you apply, that kind of stuff. So not one big speech. I mean, I know my grandparents, but unfortunately, because of the history of this country, I don't have the benefit of knowing where we came from. So, but we know who we are to a certain extent.
Where were your grandparents at? Do you know?
New York City.
New York City.
So, Chris, talk a little bit about that, because so we're talking about identity, right? And presumably, you're insinuating that somewhere in because obviously it's not the case for every single Black family, but that your ancestors were slaves, right? So what obviously there's at some point you know the general history like a lot of people, but then it disappears, like, well, they were slaves. So what do you know about that?
Not a whole lot. Like you said, enslaved, records were not kept of familial ties, so we just don't know. 23andMe is a new thing, relatively new, I guess, and you can kind of trace your lineage back to at least genetically where your people originate from, but that doesn't really tell you who your people are. I mean, it's interesting. I haven't done it. I don't know if I would do it, but it doesn't really tell you anything other than the fact that part of you comes from here, part of you comes from there. It would be nice to see records of everything, but it's not possible.
Do you know where your great grandparents were at, or not really?
No.
So what effect, if any, does that have on your identity, your sense of self, having that particular, notion of your ancestry?
I mean, you are not your history, and that's something that my parents taught us, and you can do stuff despite that. We are intelligent people, and we have certain expectations, and my parents always said, all right, we're going to, just like, I don't want to say Jake Shuttle, he pushed his son. I think he pushed a little too hard. My parents, they pushed us, but not too hard, I don't think. So they want to see us, or see you live up to your potential, and I feel like I hope we did that. But always pushing, self-improvement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember any particular speeches by my dad that rhyme with Jake's necessarily. The closest things to it, I do know how I got my name, Michael. I remember, and for some reason, I do hear this more from my dad, because he has said it a lot more than once. You said it was a very strong name, and yeah, he has said last, one who is like the Lord. The actual origin of the name, and even though like I don't, walk around thinking to myself, well, I'm going to be one who is like the Lord. There is like still a certain amount of like, resonance with it. I'm trying to think of any other like small things that my dad or either of my grandpas, since, both of them were alive into my early 20s and late 20s, like emphasizes identity. And, one of I was telling Steven about this, referenced every episode. The
Brett's gonna get jealous here in a little bit.
The thing about like speeches that makes them podcast worthy is that they do require a certain amount of faith, right? I did talk, Chris knows what this is, but I did talk with my nephew recently about something that required me to like contemplate something inside of myself that I thought was true. You're not exactly sure how he feels about this hypothesis that you have. And then you have to speak with a certain amount of authority with hoping that he's going to change his behavior with this. Like that's like an act of faith. And that's like a scary thing because either this individual is going to receive it, right? And even if they do receive it, they might not receive it then. It might be 10 years down the road or longer. Or they might like not receive it at all and like be offended by it. Like that's a scary thing, right? And that's like why it's so hard to replicate like these things you see in the movie. Denzel Washington isn't scared that Ray Allen is gonna say like, obviously he does say shut your mouth to some extent or the other, but it's like he doesn't mean it, right? That's what but other kinds of like identity type speeches for my dad. We have, giving Brett some attention here. He did have that interview on recently with the gentleman who talked about how there's this lack of rituals in what's now mainstream culture, right? Like initiation being one of those things, and how this author tried to replicate or recreate a very particular set of masculine initiation by involving the community, by, looking at scripture, by looking at these other sort of ancient resources. But one of the things that he did, which really sticks out to me that pertains to this first speech, is taking your son to where he grew up, right? Is that something I know Matt has listened to that podcast episode? If any of you, I feel like Ross, didn't you
Repeat
listen
that,
to that,
taking
Ross?
your son
I
where?
might have actually just read the book because
that sounds right, actually. Taking your son to where he, as one of like his initiation things that he did with his son over like
John
5
Tyson's
years.
book?
You take
John Tyson, the intentional
you
father.
take your son to where you take your son to where you grew up. So now that we know we've read this, Chris, I'll give you the opportunity. Have you read it?
So that's different than but
is that something you guys have thought about after reading that, or was that, how does that stick out to you or whatnot? Or what would you say taking your son to where you grew up? What were some of the things that would like stick out to you that you would show him?
I think this is interesting because we're all pretty tied to the places we grew up. So I think it'll come across as different because John Tyson is from Australia and he's a pastor in New York City. And, when he left Australia, he kind of knew he was never coming back and just felt called to like be a pastor in America, I think, or to not be in Australia anymore, at least. So that was like pivotal for him to go back to Australia and share with his son. But I just wonder, there's another lesson or a vantage point given, Ross, you live right down the road. And Mike, you too. Matt, you're close. I go back a lot. And therefore, I think it probably is like so much more intrinsically important to us, given that we are not on the other side of the world doing something else. I don't know. Or that we're close. I think we'll definitely have the opportunities, but it'll probably be more of a part of the rhythms of the years in the life than it is like a monumental one-time thing.
I mean, so one of my kids is actually at my mom and dad's house tonight, so it's funny that we said that. But I think part of it, so it's not going to be as epic as some, a flight across the world to Australia, but I think part of it, like taking your kids where you came from, is like, I feel like just trying to get them to see like who you are and how you got made into that, like how you came to be that way. So I've thought about that a lot, like as I've gotten a little bit older, not that I don't view my parents, not that it's like, oh, I view them totally differently, but I feel like I have just a different sense for just maybe the struggles they had or the decisions they had to make or the difficulties of, life with kids and work and trying to make it all work out. So just like, I feel like I can relate to them in a different way now that I am married and have kids myself. So I find myself often like, I kind of feel like I wish I knew more about like my parents' childhood and just the type of parents that their parents were. And I don't know, just kind of understanding how they came to be the way they were. And I think that as far as taking your kids to where you grew up, I think is but is a concrete way to help show them, yeah, this place formed me in some way.
Yeah, I'm not particularly sold that flying to Australia is that big of an important element to its weight. Because I was trying to think here, like, where you grew up. It's like, have a certain amount of looseness to that interpretation. It's like we're not just going to my mom and dad's. Like, so I was trying to think real quick about like, okay, what are the 3 places? I feel like I've got three places I'm going to take him to. The 2 that stuck out to me fairly quickly. One, getting into self-conscious, vulnerable. DPS. Don't podcast scared. One, the parking lot outside of an apartment where I told a girl I loved her. Or actually, no, I did say that, but we're, yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's simple. The other spot, I might drive down to say like Sikeston, Missouri, and pick out some quiet section of road that I bicycle down that connects New Orleans and Chicago for biking for babies.
After you eat a throat roll.
Yeah, after we eat a throat roll.
I've been there, Lambert.
And
oh yeah.
Wow, Matt, I didn't know you knew that reference. Landon knows the whole Midwest, so I'm not that impressed. And explain something to him about, when you give something everything you absolutely have, it's like that landscape becomes a part of you. I don't know what the third place, well, I guess the third place might be mom and dad's.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like the place itself,
Right.
physically isn't super significant. It's about how you platform it, how you articulate it.
Yeah, it's like what were the exact spots you made a decision or had an epiphany, and it's just like stronger to convey a value that you want to pass down in the spot where you realize that was a value.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure. For sure.
And provide them the same imagery of which to like receive the message.
I think places just provide like can provide just like a strong emotional, not attachment, but just like an emotional response to that can be powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? I remember when you guys remember the book Moonwalking with Einstein came out like 10 years ago.
Heard of it, but no, I have not read it.
It was me and Father McShane were obsessed with it for a while. We memorized everything. And the point of the book was that we remember things spatially better than abstractly because that's just how we evolved, right? To memorize these obscure pathways. But the point that I'm making here is like, yeah, communicating those important life lessons in the context of a very particular physical space, even if there's nothing super impressive about that physical space, is going to be that, yeah, it's going to pack a lot more, weight to it.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt, anything else from that first speech that you want to travel through?
I think we kind of talked about, it's just thought it was a meaningful thing because, like, I know all the stuff we're talking about, at least the book that whatever John Tyson or whatever his name is wrote, like he did that stuff with like when his son was a teenager, but Denzel like never got that chance, you know. So like he probably like he seems like the kind of guy that might have or that would definitely have something like that in mind, Maybe I'm just projecting other Denzel Washington characters on this Denzel Washington character. But like I remember the Gettysburg scene or when he takes and remember the Titans, when he takes the team to Gettysburg,
Yeah.
and like how like he just had him like I don't know, it was a very short 5-sentence speech, right? So he ran the team all the way there just to deliver this 5-sentence speech, and then they're just going to run all the way back, But anyway, maybe I'm projecting, but yeah, I think that Jake seems like the type that would have something like that in mind had he had the chance. But well, I'll just throw this out there, and if there's nothing there, we don't need to dwell on it. But I thought it was just an interesting claim that Jake makes, when he says, everyone else ain't your father. Everybody didn't bring you into this world. Everyone else don't care about you, son. Like just kind of, I just thought as absent as he was, again, kind of through this, odd circumstances and, certainly he's to blame to some degree, but maybe not entirely, it's kind of an accidental, whatever. But anyhow, like he still has this claim that as absent as he has been and as flawed as he has been, like he still actually has the most fundamental reason to care about his son compared to like all these other people who are vying for his attention, And I guess just thinking about like my father, I know there are elements of that where like he wasn't, like for example, he wasn't happy about me going to seminary. I think he started to get around to that. But I think he kind of had similar sentiments, like I'm your dad, like you're going to listen to these, priests and these random people, and not your dad. And I don't know, there are some sentiments like that expressed. And I just really thought that was a meaningful aspect of that speech.
Yeah, a week wasn't enough.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, there is something to that, like I'm your father, mic drop sort of thing. Because I was sort of thinking today. At work, one of my coworkers sort of aggravating me because he has this habit of arguing isn't quite the right word, but just putting up unnecessary resistance sometimes when you ask him to do something. And I'm obviously not his father, but it's something to the similar effect is that I'm not going to force you to do this thing, but keep in mind that I am your supervisor. Like, and there's like a certain amount of just humility with that recognition, that recognizing that you don't know everything and just keeping certain like context or perspective that, yeah, people around you have experienced a lot more than you have. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's the most relevant thought to what you shared there.
I think it's, not that I was going to say earlier, but just to see if we want to keep going here. But I feel like it's like different there, like thinking about like Jesus Shuttlesworth's perspective though, because it's like, well, like and again, a week's not enough time, I know, but like, I don't know, like, it's almost like he played that card, like, I'm your father a little bit. But for Jesus' perspective, it's like, well, you haven't been around because you killed my mother, and you've been absent for all these 5 years or whatever it was. And just again, I just don't see how that would be like received well.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel it's
I
think it's almost something that just has to be said.
Yeah.
Like, what father wouldn't say that when he's
And it's not, and the thing, like, you call it a card, but I feel like that's underselling it. Like, there is a true meaning to him being his father. You know what? It's not just like, hey, I've got this special interest. I want to make, a quick $1 million. Listen to me, right? That's what like the agent guy was saying. That's what like his girlfriend was saying. That's what all these other people are saying. Like, I'm your dad. I'm gonna be with. I'm gonna care about you, whether you care about me, maybe not. Like, but I'm gonna care about you forever. Like, that is a meaningful ass thing.
I think on the other side though, just like how he would hear it though, is like all of that you just said, but you're telling me it, and then in the same paragraph, you're telling me you're actually, even though you haven't talked to me in 5 years, only here because you want to get out of prison. So like, it's just hard to, like, if you talk about all the important, like what a father is and what a father should be, like if you don't do any of those things, and then you finally come and talk to me and then reveal the actual reason I'm here to talk to you is simply because like I want to get out of prison. Like, to a 17-year-old kid, like, I don't see how his response wouldn't be, get out of my face. But
I mean, he wrote letters upon letters
that's
upon
fair.
letters in his time, and Jesus was upset, understandably, didn't read them, and so he's always cared. He's always cared,
That's fair.
and he only had a week, as we discussed.
Only had 2 weeks.
His sister was named Mary.
Yeah.
I thought that
Like
was funny
Jesus
too.
and Mary, like it's very pious for Spike Lee.
I wonder if that was intentional.
Yeah.
On the topic of Spike, I listened to that 10-minute-ish interview, maybe 20-minute interview he did with Charlie Rose.
I thought that was good. I like that one.
Charlie's a good interviewer.
Wasn't bad. I feel like there was something that really stuck out to me. I was sort of surprised. I don't know. There wasn't as much, like, I guess, father wounds there. He implied he didn't have a great relationship. It's sort of like ordinary relationship with his dad, sort of,
Spike's relationship.
But
so you really wanted to see him expose some wounds and go deep. You were like, "Oh, this is so shallow."
Don't podcast scared. Spike.
Why does that surprise you? I mean, most people are quote ordinary or normal,
Sure.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you're not you. Spike
point.
Lee obviously is an artist at
Oh,
the
yeah.
highest level. Like, so yeah, I'd expect him to have something more substantial to say there. But yeah, I couldn't find anything on really Ray Allen or Denzel Washington. Like, well, and Denzel Washington sort of heard a little bit about his personal experience, but
real quick thing in that interview, I thought it was interesting. I can't remember if it was Spike Lee or Charlie Rose, but one of the two mentioned like, oh, maybe Tiger Woods has talked all positively about his dad.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not so positive. They said that in 98. And then, of course, however many years later, Tiger kind of heads off the rails. And
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Any of these phenoms that come out and their parents are very involved in their development, how hard are they pushing them?
Have you guys seen the HBO documentary on that? It's very good, 2-part. A lot of old TV interviews where Earl was just like talking about Tiger and like, oh, we let him play whatever sports he wants, and we
so long as it's golf,
let him like pursue his passions. And there's just like they just zoom in on like Tiger's face or Tita's face, and like just her face while like Earl's muttering these words is like, oh yeah, we let him play whatever. Okay, yeah, you're just it's just like he psychologically like trained him like harder than any adolescent has ever been trained, and like it paid off for golf performance, most certainly.
Right.
But probably wasn't well rounded. Yeah.
So maybe it's fitting. So my son's starting to play t-ball. I'm the assistant coach on the t-ball team, and his swing is
couldn't quite hack it as head coach, huh?
his swing is just goofy. I mean, it's the first year he's ever played t-ball. So like, and I mean, they're little enough that like there's no outs. Every kid bats every inning. I mean, yeah, it's an introduction to the game, I guess.
What kind of far left t-ball are you playing up there, Ross?
But I find myself like wanting to critique his swing to like start working on things. But then I watch this movie, I'm like just so conflicted internally, like, oh my gosh, am I gonna mess him up forever? Like if I fix his baseball swing. But yeah, it needs a little bit of work. We'll probably work on it this summer.
Okay, speaking of Ross potentially wounding Thomas, shall we move on
father wound
to the father wound speech? Okay. Father wound speech, remember that was the one-on-one speech here. Now I sort of wish, since we did that pretty well, I'd just like to play the speech right now, but you already heard it, so.
Just play the one line. Play the one line.
Which line?
Let me tell you something. Yeah. You look out for yourself.
Oh, okay.
You can play it. Put that in there. Yeah.
Let me tell you something. You look out for yourself. You look out for your sister. You ain't got to worry about me no more. But you get that hatred out your heart, boy. Or you're going to end up just another like your father. Sure, boy.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out with the last line that I love is, again, also considering he only had a week, but just the fact that he obviously the rest of the week had not had made little to no progress in terms of actually rectifying things with his son. And then this culminating event, his son says, "You aren't my father," right? Completely denies him and denies, his, Jake's identity in some ways, or in a very profound way, rather. But, and then he just has this one line or this one paragraph, whatever. And then he just then he says, "It's your ball." Right. And I love that line because, I think it's a subtle reference to because they had the childhood one-on-one game where he was really rough on him that they showed earlier, where, when they're in the house, he's like, "Oh, that was my ball. Like, what are you doing losing my ball? Like, I paid for that," and kind of claiming the ball, so to speak. And then he kind of, it's your ball. I don't know if that's too subtle of a reference or if they meant that or not. But anyhow, either way, it's just giving his son the freedom, which I think, that's the thing that I'm most afraid of, giving your son like the freedom to like really let you down and hurt you, which you have to do at some point, right? Like every father has to do that. Because like otherwise, yeah, you're just gonna push them. You're just gonna like, I don't know. But yeah, I just thought that was a really important aspect of like this last speech. Like, I'm gonna tell you this last thing. Like, this is really important. This is the, like, I know I've wounded you, but you have to overcome that somehow. Like,
So
it's on
in this
you,
case, it's obvious how Ray Allen could hurt him, but I'm having a hard time imagining obvious circumstances where you're giving your son the freedom to hurt you.
I mean, if they're making a decision that you don't agree with, or if they're like, if they're just heading in a direction you're not happy with, or
like seminary.
Didn't fit some vision you had for them, like something like that.
Yeah, okay, so to riff on that a little bit more, it's like, yeah, it's your ball, it's your opportunity to wield this freedom, courageously. Which is, so going back to a note that I had made in the notes. It's like Jesus's ministry begins right after his baptism into Jordan, right? And there is, right, and you could sort of use ministry as an analogy for this freedom, right? It's like, what's the significance to that, this point, this culmination? His identity has been affirmed. His affirmation of his freedom has been affirmed and clarified. Now you go out and take risk, right? Yeah, there's something very poetic and ancient about the idea there with "it's your ball."
I would say Jake recognizes now that his son is an adult, and he has to respect whatever decision he makes. And it's your ball. I'm your father. I've given you all the counsel that I can. Make your decision. Mic drop.
Yeah. So Matt had seminary for his example. Do you guys have any examples that are similar to that?
Never in the sense of something that was like disapproved of or like tried to steer against. But I don't know. I feel like it reminds me, like, I totally agree that that's like a super important and necessary thing for a parent to do, but it's also super difficult because it's like you have had not control in like a weird way, but like in a way control over this person for however many years they've been alive. Responsibility, maybe that's probably a better word. You've had responsibility for this person for, give or 18, give or take, depending on the person, years. And then all of a sudden you have to like accept that that's not your role anymore. And that's just really hard to do for anybody. And I don't know. So I didn't have an example of this in the sense of my father, disagreeing with anything I did, but the closest thing I can think of, I think I shared it in a prior episode, but like just discerning marriage and kind of discerning this lifelong thing. And that can be not difficult. I mean, it can be difficult, but just the courage it takes to make a decision like that. And then I think from the father standpoint, just, I'm not there yet. Obviously my oldest kid is 6, but just the courage it's going to take to let your kids make those type of lifelong decisions. Yeah, it's just going to be difficult.
reframe the question so that it's your ball and it's like a handoff or
a clarification of your opportunity to be free, be courageous, take risks. Do not be fearful that I will disapprove of the risk you're taking, because I have done everything I can up to this point to, shape you in these fundamental ways, even if it was only a week.
So even your redescription of that, I think I'll stick with a story in my notes that came to my mind first to describe this. It was like the week before I started my senior year of high school. So I wasn't in college yet, but there were like interviews going on at Big State University, U of I. And for the ag college, for basically like a full ride for freshman year, right before high school started up to do one more lap. My dad and I go over, I do the interview, and we're literally at U of I on quad day, which is like...
Did your dad go to U of I?
He did, yeah.
Okay, Big State,
so, Yeah, he was a Big State alum. So like in, Illinois athletics, like U of I, my mom was there too. They met there. Like it was one of the probably decision points, or just like, pretty big part of our family culture dynamic, So we're walking around like quad day, which is when like all the campus organizations are out, like the students are flooding the quad, and I'm there with my dad. I'm not even at the school. I haven't decided to come there. I might not go there. Who knows? I might play golf for some D3 school or whatever. I hadn't like fully made up my mind. Do I follow in my dad's footsteps or not and do something else? But I remember, I don't know what we said during a lot of that, but we bounced around every college building. Oh, you could be an engineer. You could be in business. Like, you could do the ag thing too. Like, it's up to you. Like, it's a huge university. You don't have to follow every single path. But we kind of sat down and rested in the hall of the library where the bronze tablets were. And like, he described what bronze tablet was, 4.0, yada, yada, yada. He's like, you could do bronze tablet as well. Like, you're gonna, here's what it's gonna take. You gotta
refresh our memory. What bronze tablet is?
Bronze tablet's basically like the top 100 GPAs at the U of I out of like 8,000 students. Your name is etched in bronze. He's like, if you want that, you can have that. Like, it's gonna be your only thing. But you can do it. To be clear to our listeners, I was nowhere near bronze tablet, so
didn't quite make it.
Did not choose that path.
He became a podcaster
Dropped
instead.
But it was like both a sense of like, we were obviously at his place or university, but just like a wide open, you've got to choose what you want. And there's like so many options, and this is on you. It's not on me. Like, I'll show you the universe that I know, fairly small universe given, the world and our little small agriculture farm Illini place in it. But to the degree that he expanded or kind of opened up whatever path along that stream, was like, all right, I can choose my way here.
Was your dad on the bronze tablet?
No, not at all.
Didn't even graduate.
Yeah, I feel like not that. I feel like we need to explore father wounds just a little bit more. Like, I don't know the end we need to take, but I feel like that's such a big part. I mean, it's like the whole movie, and it's so in the speech. I feel like we just haven't really touched on it. We're all probably a little scared to like talk about our actual fathers.
No. Let's just open up that can, and I think that somewhere in there we'll find the final.
I'm just gonna take a drink, and we're gonna go for it.
All right. You convinced me, Ross. I'll pour some more.
Oh yeah. What do you got?
Tullamore.
Tullamore, of course.
Classic.
You always drink Tullamore.
It's the go-to. It's the only one I can afford.
It's so cheap.
Very good.
So
for how
Chris,
cheap-
he doesn't mean that. Matt is just afraid to spend a dime.
Tullamore Dew is very good for its price. I think it's better
Solid.
than I think it's better than Jameson.
Oh, yeah, they're about the same price.
Jameson's $5.
Hey, you like what you like.
Ooh. Yeah. All right. Is Landon gone?
Okay, so obviously the crux of this film is, although I think it could have been portrayed better, Ray Allen / Jesus Shuttlesworth trying to get over his father wounds, right? The idea that he needs to rectify the fact that his father pushed him so hard, was too vital. He was too full of life. And that, see, they should have done this better in the film. This is what I think Spike Lee meant. He was too full of life and too vital, and Ray Allen didn't love basketball enough. That's how they should have implied it. But also, like, he was just this ball of energy, this ball of passion, and, he could maybe, like, tie his, accidentally killing Ray Allen's mom, to that idea. Okay. But they rectify that seemingly through some magical basketball, which is another film criticism there. Suddenly there's magic. But they rectify that most significantly and fundamentally. In a week. Oh, wait. So what are our father wounds like? And the reason that's an important question, of course, is because this film made however many millions of dollars, right? And
Not that
didn't
many.
make
It was a flop. It was a flop.
Oh.
0 million. It made 0 million.
It had to have made more than...
The budget was $25 million. It made $21 million.
That's multi-million.
A multi-million-dollar film.
Sorry, Landon, we're not as rich as you. Lost $2 million. Okay. Still made $21 million. They probably paid Michael Jordan too much making a cameo. He probably charged $7 million. But the point is, people are attracted to the film, presumably not just because it's a basketball film or something fun like that. It's because there is something recognizable in it. So what are those father wounds that we saw in there when you're like, that's me. That's me and my dad. I know this is
in the movie.
Scariest question the speech guy's ever asked. What was that?
We've all seen the movie, Landon. We want real stuff here.
Yeah, no, real stuff.
I'll jump in. I think one thing that to pull something out of the notes that I think me and Matt sort of seem to agree on, and Mike kind of challenged a little bit, so we were a little bit different, like thinking about it. But the idea, speaking of father wounds, on how they can be not complete, they can be incidental, I guess. So, and I think the reason I bring that up is because I think, yes, there's some maybe more obvious father wounds, and you can paint the picture of, a father who's absent or an alcoholic or, abused his child or something like that. But just things that maybe weren't as, clearly you're doing a bad job, but just something that was wrongly perceived by the child. So almost like an incidental father wound. The reason I think I bring it up is because I'm not saying the movie did it intentionally, but like Jake didn't mean to kill his wife, right? So it's a total accident, and yet it has this huge, profound impact on Jesus and his relationship with Jake for, the rest of their lives probably. So to kind of take that from the film, this idea that you can do something, and not that Jake didn't do anything wrong, like he shouldn't have pushed his wife, but obviously he wasn't trying to kill her either. So I feel like for me personally, then like kind of trying to draw from that a little bit, I think I just always put a lot of pressure on myself to be good at the things my dad was good at. And for listeners or Chris who doesn't know me super well, and like so I'm from a pretty small town. So and I was
Centerville, Illinois.
center of Illinois.
Center.
It's pretty.
Or it used to be.
Used to be the actual center of Illinois, and then they moved it.
I think it might be the center of the U.S. too. Maybe the world. We're not sure.
No,
but-
that's down here.
Yeah, so just, I mean, I feel like I always, so to just set for people that don't know us well, so from a very small town, so I was the third generation in that town, and my dad was just pretty good at stuff, like he was always very good at sports. We owned the grocery store, which there wasn't very many businesses in town, so like, I don't want to say well known in like a weird way, but like, yeah. So I feel like I always put a lot of pressure on myself to be good at things dad was good at. So dad was very good at football. And people like told me that. There was this old guy in town, I guess kind of your stereotypical, he's probably been to every home football game for the high school for the last 35 years. And like he came up to me once and like started talking to me about remembering when my dad played and like trying to compare me to him and things like that. So I feel like I always put a lot of pressure on myself, even though it wasn't intentional from my dad. Like I think I always put a lot of pressure on myself to be good at the things he was good at, because I kind of felt like there was an expectation there that probably was never there in the first place, but I put it on myself. So I don't know if that counts as a father wound or not, but something I kind of connected a little bit from watching the movie.
I think this works as final bell question.
Yeah, that's good. I like it.
Final bell?
Ding, 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 ding.
Final bell.
Erosion. 15. One more round. There's no stopping this now. This is our round. Don't stop it now. To start, we don't stop. All your strength, all your power, all your love, everything you've got. This is all light to do it young.
Final bell. Here we
Do I
go.
have to talk again? Or did I just answer it?
No, you're good. You're good.
Ross did a little pre-fight dance there at the final bell. And we'll take it the rest of the way home. Final bell, father wound, father wound. Father wound sounds too like babyish. How about red badge of courage?
Father's scars.
Father's
Chicks
scars. We're not quite healed, but we're not bleeding anymore either.
But yeah, my dad was a pretty intense guy, and he would get pretty angry at times. Yeah, and I think he would. I felt like I'm sure he wasn't trying to be controlling per se, but I felt as if he was controlling me a lot, especially as adolescent teenager. Which now looking back, there's a lot that he was dealing with at the time, and I think I've got a better appreciation for what he did for me and for all of us kids. But yeah, there's kind of a rough patch there, I guess. But yeah, I think I felt like there was a period where I felt like I had to walk on eggshells around him, and I think to some degree that has caused me to felt like I needed to earn, God's love, or earn a spot in the world, which to some degree is true. And not that you need to earn God's love, I guess, but yeah, you do need to put in the effort and work hard, and there are consequences. Yeah, I think all those things my dad taught me very, very well. But I think if anything, if just coming out of that, I think I've erred on the side of kind of people pleasing, and I guess struggling to just interact authentically with authority figures, just because I always kind of had to be careful around. I felt like I had to be careful around my dad at times. So I think that's been something that, I've certainly realized. I've kind of dealt with, and I have talked to my dad to some degree about that sort of thing. And yeah, I think it is, because I know, Mike, you mentioned people blaming their wives and their fathers for stuff,
Mm-hmm. I'm blaming my wife already. I'm not even married.
But yeah, no, it is the type of thing that you do need to be very careful of. All right, yep, this is what I grew up with. This was good, this was bad, and like, kind of dealing with that. And yeah, that's what I thought was like really important about Jake's speech at the end. Just like, hey, I screwed up, and so I guess he didn't admit that necessarily, but yeah, like you need to deal with the things that have happened in your heart, because that's gonna mess you up later on.
Yeah, I mean, briefly, there is a significant point to that of recognizing the positive as much along with the negative.
Don't know if I really have any deep wounds per se, but I feel like I'm lucky. My dad he's always been very good. He's been awesome, omnipresent. But I will say that it always feels like I'm playing catch up because I don't know how to say it. He'll make time for you. I remember vividly I need help with my homework even before work in the morning. All right, you're gonna be late. I'm gonna be late. I don't care. Let's figure this out. And we did. But I don't know. It's like they both my parents, they punch way above their weight class, and I feel like I'm always playing catch up. And when I compare myself to where they are and where they've come from, I'm still playing catch up. So that's something that I've been trying to work through for a long time. And I don't know if that's something that can be solved. I just need to live with it, and so it's kind of like a distance, I guess.
You've used the word omnipresent at least twice now in this podcast, so I'm really curious exactly the examples, the imagery that comes to your mind that you're referencing there. But
I mean, I saw a question in the notes. What does it mean to be a father? And that's one of the things that I think you need to be a good or an effective father. You got to be omnipresent. You got to be in your family's life, and you have to be participating. And my parents, my father, they were all like that. And I don't know if that's a separate question, but for me personally, I would achieve this thing professionally or personally, and oh yeah, that's great. And then I would think about, or they might mention a thing that they did, and I'm just measuring myself compared to them, I guess. And they're just so far ahead, always, always, always so far ahead. Create a little bit of distance between my dad and I guess. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of similar or something. So, like, I mean, who else do you have to compare yourself to, right? I mean, you're in your own household, and okay, Landon, where do we need to stitch you up at?
Yeah, I feel like there's a couple things I want to tie in that I'm gonna like throw out in the front here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to tie them together into a tight knot, but I think one of the themes I will throw out. Yeah, I'll just throw out Genesis 4 here. The Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country, go from your people, go from your father's household to the land that I will show you." I think like the story of Abraham right off the bat is like he was a pretty old dude, married, but he was still with his father. There's like a non-biblical canon, what are those called? We actually studied it in Lutheran Sunday school, but it's not in the Bible. It's like Abraham destroyed all the idols of his father while his father was gone one day. It's a Jewish term for a story that's not canon. Anyway, but I remember that one. We could look it up later. But I think, yeah, there's like, what I'm trying to debate is like there's such a virtue of carrying on a family legacy and standing on the shoulders of your father that also, I think that Eastern religions and Eastern culture also believe that. But here in the Abraham story, we see like go out and perhaps discover yourself or be your own individual. That is definitely more an ethos that we perhaps identify as an American. It could be like an artifact of a pretty old early Christian, like accept the Spirit and become who you are. That includes a lot of things your father was too, but you don't have to like stay directly under his wing. Separately, I think, I don't know if that really relates to like any sort of wound. So I'll flip it back to, imagine, so I grew up on a farm. Father was a full-time farmer. A way to describe farming is like you live in a community. Like, could you imagine if everybody you went to church with, that you saw at the grocery store, were your peers? Like, if they could see the quality of your work every day on display, like in your job, in your perhaps even like home life, and if it was just like out there to like drive by and judge, that's a little bit of like farming in a community. Like your work is out in the open, anybody can drive by your fields. And I don't know about you guys, but like personally, if like everybody in my personal life could also judge the quality of like my work life, like that'd be a lot of pressure. And I think that some of, again, perhaps trying to figure out a wound, I think that is a high pressure environment if you think about it that way, which you don't have to. And the wound would probably be like, I felt like my father always like thought the grass was greener on the other side. Like, oh man, I just wish I had an 8 to 5 job, like an office culture. Farming in the community I grew up in, where you literally know 4 generations back, every single field, home that you drive by for a 20-mile radius. Like, and then the feeling of them perhaps judging you is like office, career, that would be like so much better. And I think that is one thing I remember bringing that up to him when we were driving to Big State University, obviously. The farm to Big State University, we grew up in like it's a really sandy soil farm. If it doesn't rain, like things dry out, it gets bad. But as you approach the Eden that is Champaign-Urbana and the black soils and perfect weather and 300 bushel corn, all the farmsteads, like there's farmsteads that have 3 acres of pure green grass, like their lawns always look perfect. And we were like contrasting like where we farm versus Eastern Illinois Eden. And it's like, yeah, you know, you always think like the grass is greener over here, like it's easier to farm there, or, you know, whatever. And there's one yard that is just perfect every time. It's like, well, yeah, true, the grass may not be greener everywhere, but it definitely is on that farmstead all the time. We should farm there. And I think that I don't, yeah, it was after I graduated from college. Somehow I was in a car with them, and it kind of like, it was an interesting comment that broke the ice of just like, it's not, yeah, the grass isn't, yeah, the key is to figure out how to water your own grass and be grateful for
There you go.
That side of the fence to quell the own anger that is within you, that Jake and Jesus had to confront. Not sure all those threads tied together, but
Close enough in my book for 10:41 p.m. It's been a great show. Chris, it's been great having you. Can't wait till the next Denzel Washington movie we come up with is, I don't know. Safe House is on Prime right now. You guys figure out something to do with Safe House. Ross, what do we have going on next episode?
Well, we'll officially find out in 3 weeks, but I think we might try to learn a little bit from our friend Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. Classic. Well, hey, thanks for drinking.
And thinking.
be safe out there.
Start over.
Wait.
Chris, you can say cue the music since you're the guest.
Cue the music.
Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Up ahead you'll find a peace of mind, relief from the trying. I have burned a bridge, wrecked in a ditch. which had to ask forgiveness. Dead ends come and go. Look toward the horizon. Oh, there are stories to tell. The times we grew and the times we fell.